TYT's reporter Jordan Sheridan was able to get a word in with Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, and he asked her about the issue of money in politics, and her response is very revealing.
The future of the Democratic Party in the terms of there's this huge outcry, especially the young, against big money and the corporate influence, including Democratic politicians?
No, I mean, it's the Republicans that need to, but we'll be worried about their party. I mean, I would bet, quite a bit of money at this stage that the Republicans end up sort of blowing themselves to smithereens after their convention. I think they have descended into utter chaos. I don't think they can come out the other side the same way they went in. And for us, we have two candidates that agree on the goals, and then there are slightly, or sometimes a little more than slightly, different approaches to how to achieve those goals. But at our core, we are all for making sure that people have a fair shot and they can reach the middle class, and that they can get a good job and have a roof over their head and get a good education and not have their health care taken away, and make sure that it's a right.
And the people behind Bernie feel like a lot of the establishment Democrats are taking money from the same people that they say they're going after, Wall Street, big oil.
Look, I mean, I think both political parties through time immemorial have had a spectrum, a range of views across a spectrum, but we're a big tent party. So we have the ability to absorb and be unified with people on the far left and, that are center right, and still have, the same people calling themselves Democrats and supporting our nominee.
Jordan asked her, hey, a lot of Democrats take money from the same people the Republicans take money from. Wall Street, big oil. Now, I mean, to be clear, the Democrats take nowhere near the same amount of money when it comes to big oil specifically. But Wall Street, they do take a lot of money from Wall Street. So his point is perfectly valid. He's like, hey, wait a second. You say the problem is the Republicans, and oh my God, they're going to implode, and they're the worst. But what about the Democrats who take money from the same donors and listen to the same lobbyists? What about that? And her response is, well, I mean, we're a big tent party. So understand what she did there. She co-opted the language of liberalism and progressivism for something that's the opposite of liberal and progressive. She's like, what do you mean? We're so open-minded and we're so tolerant that we're willing to accept people in our party that bribe us and get us to do the bidding of corporations at the expense of the people. We don't want you to be that open-minded. We don't want you to be that tolerant. We don't want you to be so judgment-free that you get corrupted. But again, she's spinning it to try to make it seem like, oh, no, we're more progressive because we take money from people who are going to set the agenda, and oftentimes set the agenda against the will of the American people. A lot of people have made this point also when it comes to Hillary Clinton and feminism. She's co-opted the language of feminism for ends that are nowhere near that. Like, for example, she'll talk about intersectionality and all these different things. Meanwhile, like, wait a second. You're somebody who's been responsible for dropping bombs on the heads of women and children in the Middle East. So what do you mean? Like, do the only feminist lives that matter are apparently in the West? But as soon as you get outside of our borders, you're liable to get blown the fuck up. Well, forgive me for saying I don't really buy into your feminism if that's the case. Furthermore, Bernie Sanders is actually further left on the issue of reproductive rights and on the issue of abortion than Hillary Clinton. Now, on that issue, it's actually a rare issue where I agree more with Hillary Clinton. I'm actually more centrist on that issue. But Bernie's to the left of her. So you have Bernie, who talks about feminism, calls himself a male feminist. Many of his followers are young women feminists and male feminists even. And he actually more fully embodies the message and the principles of traditional feminism, if you will. Hillary uses that language, and she's like, hey, I have a vagina, so vote for me because feminism. But wait, I'm voting for you, but you're the candidate who's much more likely to start more wars. You're the candidate who's much more likely to be hawkish in a variety of different ways and continue with the drone program. You're much more likely to continue NSA spying. You voted for the Patriot Act, which gets rid of our constitutional rights. I mean, these are things that are disastrous. And these are things that, obviously, when you get into the specifics and see how many women your policies have killed, well, that would make you quite anti-feminist. That would make you the opposite of caring about women's rights. Do you care about women's rights in Palestine, Hillary Clinton? When you defended, as you did in this in the recent debate, the 80% civilian death rate in Gaza? Oh, I'm so concerned about women's lives and women's rights, let me tell you. Which is why I went up there and I didn't call the actions of Netanyahu disproportionate when I was directly asked to, even though the actions bombed schools and hospitals and killed 80% civilians, including many women and children. 500 children were killed. So this is co-opting the language of the left for pretty nefarious ends. Now, I know they don't think it's nefarious because they're just trying to win, like Barney Frank said to Jordan Sheridan. Hey, the Republicans already get 80% of money from the big banks. You know, what, you want them to get 100%? You want us to be at an even bigger disadvantage? So they don't view it as, they're corrupt and they're selling out. They view it as, realism, pragmatism. Like, oh, well, we have to win, and in order to win, we got to take the corporate cash. But then that obviously affects your policies. And when that affects your policies and pushes you in a less progressive way, then it is beyond cynical, and it's a terrible thing that you use progressive language and liberal language like big tent party to basically embody illiberal and illiberal principles and non-progressive or unprogressive principles. So that's the problem here. And again, this is a great job by TYT's reporter. We're covering him on the show now like every week because he does something that's awesome, whether it's talking to a Trump supporter, talking to Bernie supporters, or in this case, talking to Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, and basically exposing her for what she is. She said, oh, I'm so liberal, I'm so progressive that I will be so open-minded to the point where I'll take money from corrupting influences and then try to portray that as me being even more progressive than the other people because I accepted money that's going to, push us in the direction of doing pro-corporate policies and not policies for the people. No, that's not liberal. That's not progressive. That's the opposite.